The night was silent, the kind of silence that pressed down on the small human town like a heavy blanket. Only the sound of insects and the soft rustle of trees filled the air. Inside his house, Daniel, a human soldier recently returned from the front lines, sat awake in the dark. He had not been able to sleep properly since the war. Every creak of wood, every whisper of the wind made him restless. He sat near the window, staring at the quiet street, when suddenly he heard something strange, the sound of water running. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. Maybe a pipe leaking, maybe something ordinary. But then it grew louder, steady, clear. It was coming from his own bathroom. Daniel's muscles tightened. His training told him to stay calm, but his heart began to pound. Slowly, carefully, he stood up. The old floor creaked under his boots, yet the sound of water did not stop. Someone was inside. Someone had broken into his house. He moved closer to the bathroom door, his hand already resting on the knife at his belt. As he approached, he heard a faint voice, a whisper, trembling, desperate. "Please, let me wash. I'm so dirty." Daniel froze. The words were not human. The voice carried a strange accent, soft and alien, filled with fear and shame. He pushed the door slightly open, and the steam hit his face. Inside his shower stood a figure he had never expected. It was a girl, but not human. Her skin glowed faintly under the dim light, marked with dirt, bruises, and scratches. Her hair clung to her shoulders, wet and tangled. She was trembling, covering herself as if the water was both her protection and her weakness. For a moment, Daniel just stared. His mind raced. How had she entered his house, and why here? The girl looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. She spoke again, voice breaking, "I am not here to harm. I only need water. Please, let me wash." Daniel's soldier instinct screamed caution. Aliens in this region were rare. Most kept far away from human settlements. Many were dangerous, or at least distrusted. But the girl before him did not look like a threat. She looked fragile, weak, almost broken. Her clothes were torn, little more than rags hanging to her thin body. Dust and blood stained her skin, as if she had been running through wastelands for days. He noticed faint metal marks around her wrists and ankles, the kind left by chains. His grip on the knife loosened, but his suspicion remained. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice firm, steady. The girl lowered her head, unable to meet his eyes. I escaped. I was kept like an animal. I ran until I found this place. I only wanted to feel clean again, just once. I will leave after this. Please don't hurt me." Her words hit him harder than he expected. Daniel knew the galaxy was cruel. He had seen slavery, cruelty, even torture in his service. But to find one of those victims in his own bathroom, trembling under his shower, was something he had never imagined. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Only the sound of water filled the room, dripping down her fragile form. Daniel's mind weighed the risks. If she was lying, she could be dangerous. If she was telling the truth, then she was desperate, helpless, and hunted. Her eyes met his again, glistening with tears mixed into the water on her face. "Please," she whispered. "I have nothing left. Just let me wash." Daniel stepped back slowly, his hand still near his weapon, but his tone softer. "Finish. But after that, you tell me everything. Do you understand?" The girl nodded quickly, relief flashing across her face. She turned back to the water, clutching herself tightly, as if afraid the moment of safety would vanish. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, not leaving but not attacking either, as the water washed away the dirt. Daniel saw more clearly the scars that covered her body. Some were fresh, red, and raw, others older, healed but deep. They told the story of years, of suffering, of chains and punishment. She did not need to say more. Her body spoke louder than words. Minutes passed, but Daniel did not relax. His eyes scanned every detail, every shadow. Still, something in him shifted. She was not just an intruder, she was a survivor. When she finally turned off the water, she clutched the ragged cloth around her body and looked at him again, almost ashamed. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel exhaled slowly, his mind still conflicted. This was no ordinary night. A stranger, an alien girl, had entered his home not to steal, not to fight, but only to wash away her pain. He knew this was only the beginning, because if she had run here, others would be searching for her. And if they found her in his house, his life would never be the same again. Asterisk. The bathroom was filled with silence after the water stopped. Daniel stood still by the door, his hand resting near his belt, his soldier instincts refusing to let go of caution. The alien girl clutched the ragged cloth around her trembling body, eyes fixed on the floor as though she carried the weight of 1,000 fears. Daniel's voice finally broke the silence. "Now talk. Who are you, and why are you in my house?" The girl hesitated, lips trembling, but then she looked up. Her eyes, large and glassy, carried pain and desperation. "My name is Lyra," she whispered. "I don't belong to this town, or even this world. I was taken, kept in chains, used like an animal. I ran away when I found a chance, but they will come for me. They always do." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had heard such stories before, whispers of alien slaves bought and sold in the black markets of outer colonies. But hearing it directly, seeing the proof carved into her scars, was something else. His eyes scanned her again, the faint metal, burns around her wrists and ankles, the thinness of her body, the way her voice cracked whenever she spoke. "Chains," he muttered. "So you're telling me you escaped from slavers?" Lyra nodded quickly. "Yes, they kept us underground, hidden from the patrols. I was lucky. I slipped through while they fought over another prisoner. I ran, I hid in the dirt, in the cold, in the filth. Days passed, I could not even remember how many. I thought I would die like the others. Then I saw the lights of this house." Her words came out in bursts, broken by shivers and quiet sobs. Daniel felt the soldier's suspicion fighting inside him. Was she telling the truth or weaving a story? But one look into her eyes told him it was no lie. No actor could fake that kind of pain. "And so you came here." "To my shower," Daniel said, almost in disbelief. She lowered her head again. "I was covered in mud, in blood, in shame. My skin itched. It burned. I wanted to feel clean, even if only once, before they caught me again. I wanted to remember what it felt like to be alive." Her words hit him harder than a bullet. Daniel had seen brave soldiers cry less on the battlefield. But this girl was fighting her own war, not with weapons, but with scars that spoke louder. Ben screams. He stepped closer, though his hand still rested near his knife. "Do they know you came here? Are they following you?" Lyra's breath quickened. Her body tensed as if the very thought of her pursuers might break through the walls at any moment. "They never stop hunting. Slaves are not allowed to escape. To them, we are property, nothing more. They will track me. They will search every corner. They will hurt anyone who hides me. If they know I am here, they will come." Daniel's eyes narrowed. Already, the weight of danger settled over him. If she was right, then letting her stay could bring killers straight to his doorstep. His soldier's mind screamed at him too. Push her out, to save himself before trouble arrived. But another part of him, the part that had carried wounded comrades from burning battlefields, refused to abandon her. "Why should I believe you?" he asked coldly, though his voice carried less anger than he intended. Lyra's shoulders shook. She slowly pulled the ragged cloth from her arm, showing a fresh wound, deep and cruel. Because they did this. Because no one who lives in comfort would carve scars like these on their own body. You can send me away if you want, but I will not last another night out there. Daniel stared at the wound, his chest tightening. The girl's truth was carved in her flesh, undeniable. He let out a slow breath, lowering his hand away from the knife. Lyra, seeing his hesitation, stepped closer but kept her eyes lowered in respect. I know humans are feared among my kind. I know the stories they tell. Humans are violent, humans are dangerous, humans are merciless. But you opened the door and did not strike me down. That already makes you different. Her words struck Daniel like a quiet hammer. He had been called many things during the war, none of them kind. Yet here stood an alien girl, broken and fragile. Seeing him as a savior instead of a monster. Still, his instincts refused to die. If they find you here, they'll think I'm protecting you. Do you understand what that means for me? Lyra finally lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes with trembling. Courage. It means you will be in danger too. But if you turn me away now, it means my death. Decide what kind of man you are. Human. The room fell silent again, heavy with the weight of her words. Daniel's chest rose and fell slowly. He could almost hear the echo of his old commander's voice in his head. Choose wisely. Soldier, for your choices will shape more lives than your own. He clenched his jaw, his mind torn. The safe choice was simple. Throw her out, close the door, and let the galaxy's cruelty take its course. But as he looked at Lyra, shivering, clutching her cloth like a shield, he knew the safe choice would haunt him forever. Daniel finally spoke, voice low but steady. You'll stay for now, but if you're lying, if this is some trick, you won't like what happens next. Lyra's eyes widened, relief mixing with gratitude. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, trembling smile. I swear on what little I have left, I am not your enemy. Daniel turned away, running a hand across his tired face. He knew what he had just done. By keeping her, he had chosen a side, and that choice would bring shadows to his door before long. Outside, the night was silent once more. But for Daniel, silence no longer meant safety. It meant waiting for the storm. The old wooden house stood quiet, but Daniel could not relax. His instincts told him danger was close, even if the night outside seemed calm. Lyra sat near the wall, wrapped in a blanket he had tossed toward her. She held it tight, still shivering, even though the room was warm. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The crackle of the fireplace was the only sound. Daniel's eyes never left her. He could still see the scars on her arms and the haunted look in her eyes. He wanted answers, but he also wanted silence. Silence to think, silence to breathe. Finally, Lyra broke it. Her voice was low, almost too soft to hear. Al, why did you not throw me out? Daniel's jaw tightened. He didn't have a clear answer himself. He leaned against the edge of the table, arms crossed. Because I don't like throwing people to wolves, even if they are not human. Lyra's head lifted slightly, her eyes meeting his for the first time since the bathroom. There was no anger in her gaze, only exhaustion and fragile hope. Then, I owe you more than I can repay. Daniel shook his head sharply. You owe me nothing. Just stay quiet, stay out of sight, and when it's safe, you leave. Her fingers gripped the blanket tighter. She whispered, almost pleading, safe is a word I have not known in a long time. Those words echoed in Daniel's chest. He remembered the war, the nights he had guarded broken men who cried silently in their bunks. He remembered the faces of refugees who looked at soldiers not as killers, but as shields. Lyra's voice carried the same weight, the same need, but he forced his feelings back. Emotion could cloud judgment, and judgment was all that kept him alive. "Listen carefully," Daniel said, his tone firm. "If you're going to stay, there are rules. No wandering. No noise. No drawing attention. If anyone finds out you're here, it'll be the end for both of us." Lyra nodded quickly, her eyes wide with sincerity. "I promise. I will be silent. I will be unseen. You have my word." For a moment, Daniel studied her. She looked so fragile, yet there was something unbreakable in her eyes. Despite everything she had endured, she still carried a spark. A quiet fire that refused to die. The agreement hung between them like an invisible chain. He had not spoken the word safe, and she had not spoken the word trust. Yet both understood it was there. The night stretched on. Daniel sat near the door with his knife across his lap, his eyes heavy but sharp. Lyra curled up near the fire, her small frame almost disappearing beneath the blanket. She did not sleep easily. Every time her eyes closed, she twitched as though memories clawed at her even in dreams. At one point, she whispered in her sleep, her voice trembling. "Don't take me back. Don't chain me again." Daniel's grip on his knife tightened. He did not wake her, but he did not look away either. He understood now that her pain was not just on her skin, it was carved deep inside her soul. Hours passed in uneasy silence. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the shutters. Daniel's mind raced. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone came searching. Slavers did not let property escape without pursuit. They would track her scent, her trail, even rumors in the town. And when they came, they would not care that she was in his house. They would burn it down just to get her back. But still, when he looked at her trembling form near the fire, he could not bring himself to regret his choice. As dawn began to rise, a faint light creeping through the cracks of the shutters, Lyra stirred. She sat up slowly, her eyes swollen from restless dreams. She noticed Daniel still awake, guarding the door like a soldier in enemy territory. "You did not sleep," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged. "I don't sleep much anyway." She tilted her head, studying him for the first time with curiosity instead of fear. "You are not like the others." He frowned. "Others? Humans," she explained softly. "The stories we were told. Humans are cruel. Humans are hunters. Humans are beasts. That is what they said to us. But you are here, watching over me, not chaining me. You are different." Daniel let out a short, humorless laugh. "You don't know me well enough to say that." But Lyra's eyes did not waver. "I know enough. You could have turned me in. You could have killed me. Yet you let me stay. That is enough for me." Her words unsettled him more than he expected. He was no hero. He had blood on his hands, choices he could never erase. Yet here she was, calling him different, almost calling him good. He turned his gaze back to the door, unwilling to let her see the storm inside him. "Remember what I said? Stay silent, stay hidden. That's how you repay me." Lyra lowered her head, but a faint, fragile smile touched her lips. "Then silent I will be, until the day you tell me otherwise." The agreement was sealed, unspoken, fragile, yet stronger than chains. A human soldier, broken by war, and an alien slave, scarred by cruelty, now shared one roof and one dangerous secret. Outside, the world was waking, unaware of the storm waiting to break. But inside that house, two strangers had chosen a path that neither could walk back from. The first rays of morning light crept through the wooden shutters, drawing pale lines across the floor. Daniel sat at the table, sharpening the edge of his knife, his mind heavy with thoughts he could not push away. Across the room, Lyra sat, curled in the blanket, silent, her eyes following the sparks of steel against stone. Neither spoke for a long while. Yet the silence between them was thick, carrying the weight of unasked questions. Daniel finally broke it. "You said they hurt you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Show me." Lyra froze, clutching the blanket tighter around herself. Her breathing grew quick. She shook her head slightly. "No, it is not something you want to see." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "If I am risking my life by keeping you here, then I need to know the truth. I need to see what they did to you." Her lips trembled. She turned away, as if his words cut deeper than blades. For a moment, Daniel thought she would refuse again. But slowly, with shaking hands, she pulled the blanket away from her shoulders. The sight made Daniel's chest tighten. Her back was marked with long scars, cruel and jagged, as though metal had been dragged across her flesh again and again. Her arms bore rings of burns where shackles had once dug into skin. Across her side, fresh bruises still colored her pale body. Daniel had seen men broken on battlefields, but nothing had prepared him for this. These were not wounds of war. They were the marks of ownership, punishment, and suffering. Lyra kept her head down, shame burning in her eyes. "This is who I am now. Not a person, not free. Just something to be used and broken. That is why I ran, why I needed to wash away the filth. But no matter how much I scrub, the marks remain." Her voice cracked, and for the first time since entering his house, tears spilled down her cheeks. They rolled down silently, as though even her crying was used to being hidden. Daniel's hand tightened around the knife handle until his knuckles turned white. He wanted to speak, to tell her she was wrong, but the words caught in his throat. He had seen cruelty before, but seeing it written across her body made his anger burn hotter than fire. Lyra hugged the blanket back to her chest, curling into herself as though she wished to disappear. "If you regret letting me in, you can still throw me out. I will not curse you for it. I do not deserve your kindness." Her words stabbed deeper than the scars she carried. Daniel stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Lyra flinched at the sound, shrinking into the corner. But Daniel did not approach with anger. Instead, he walked to the window, pulling the curtain slightly aside. His eyes scanned the quiet street outside, every instinct alert for danger. Only when he was sure no one lingered did he speak. "You think these scars make you worthless?" he said, his voice low, steady. "But they don't. They make you alive. Every mark means you survived what should have killed you. That's not weakness. That's strength." Lyra lifted her head, her eyes wide, shimmering with confusion. "Strength. These chains have broken me." Daniel turned, meeting her gaze directly. "No. If you were broken, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have escaped. You wouldn't be sitting in my house asking for nothing but a chance to feel human again. That takes strength I've seen in only a few." The silence that followed was heavy, but different now. Not filled with suspicion, but with something fragile, almost hopeful. Lyra's tears fell harder, and this time she did not try to hide them. She pressed her hands to her face, her shoulders shaking. "No one has ever said that to me before. No one." Daniel walked closer, his steps slow, careful, as though approaching a wounded animal. He set the knife on the table and knelt down, keeping his distance but lowering his voice. "I'm not saying it to make you feel better. I'm saying it because it's the truth." For the first time, Lyra let her sobs free. She cried openly, years of pain pouring out with every sound. The walls of Daniel's home echoed with her grief, and yet it did not feel like weakness. It felt like release, the breaking of a dam too long held back. Daniel did not reach out to touch her. He knew better than to force comfort on someone who had only known chains. Instead, he simply stayed there, a silent presence, letting her cry until the storm began to fade. When her sobs quieted, she wiped her eyes with the edge of the blanket, her breathing uneven. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "Why are you not afraid of me? Why do you not throw me out?" Daniel's expression hardened, but his eyes softened. "Because I've seen too many good people thrown away. I won't add another name to that list." Lyra lowered her head, her voice breaking. "Then I will stay silent. I will follow your rules. But know this, you have given me more than a place to hide. You have given me something I thought I lost long ago." "What's that?" Daniel asked. She looked up, her tear-streaked face, trembling but alive. "Hope." Daniel's chest tightened at the word. Hope was dangerous. Hope could be a weapon. But in her eyes, it looked like light. And he realized then that keeping her was no longer just a decision. It was a responsibility. Outside, the sound of distant footsteps echoed faintly through the street. Daniel's soldier senses sharpened instantly. The storm was closer than he thought. The morning had barely begun when Daniel heard it, the faint crunch of boots on gravel outside his house. It was too steady to be travelers, too heavy to be neighbors. His instincts told him danger had arrived sooner than expected. He moved quickly to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to see the street. 3 figures in dark armor moved slowly, scanning the houses. They were not soldiers from the town. Their gear was different, sharp and foreign. Slavers? Daniel's jaw tightened. He had expected them to come eventually, but not this soon. Glanced back at Lyra, who sat near the fireplace, her face pale, her blanket clutched tightly to her chest. Her body stiffened as she sensed the fear in his eyes. "They are here, aren't they?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded once. "Stay low. Don't make a sound." Her breathing quickened, panic flashing across her face. "If they find me, they will take me back. They will chain me again." Daniel crouched near her, his voice firm. "They won't touch you. Not while you're under this roof." He reached for the rifle hidden beneath the floorboard, his hands steady, though his blood ran hot with tension. He checked the chamber with practiced ease. The click of metal sharp in the quiet room. Outside, the slavers spread out, one moving to the left of the house, another toward the back, the third staying in front. They were searching with purpose. Lyra's eyes filled with terror as she realized they were closing in. She whispered, "They can smell weakness. They always find it." Daniel shook his head. "Not today." The front door rattled as one of the slavers knocked, heavy and deliberate. "Open up," a voice barked, deep and rough. Routine check. Daniel didn't move. He signaled Lyra to crawl under the table and stay hidden. She obeyed instantly, her small frame trembling as she tucked herself into the shadows. The knocking came again, harder this time. "Open, human. We don't have all day." Daniel stepped toward the door, his rifle resting against the wall nearby, his knife hidden at his side. He opened the door just enough to face the armored figure outside. The slaver's mask reflected the morning light, his eyes cold behind the visor. "We are looking for someone. A girl, not human. Escaped property. Have you seen her?" Daniel's expression stayed flat, his soldier training masking every trace of emotion. "No, haven't seen anyone." The slaver tilted his head, studying. "Daniel, strange. Tracks lead near here. And you. You look like the type to hide something." Daniel stepped outside, closing the door halfway behind him. "You're mistaken. Now move on. You're disturbing the peace." The second slaver appeared from the side of the house, holding a scanning device. He tapped the screen and smirked. "Heat signature. Small. Inside." Lyra's heart pounded under the table, her hands gripping the wooden leg as tears pricked her eyes. She had promised silence, but fear threatened to rip a scream from her throat. Daniel's hand brushed his knife, his voice turning cold. "That's the fire, nothing else." The third slaver moved closer, his weapon glinting in the light. "We'll check for ourselves." For a split second, the world slowed. Daniel saw their hands moving to their weapons, saw the tension in their stances. He knew what came next. Without hesitation, Daniel struck. He slammed his shoulder into the first slaver, knocking him off balance, then drew his knife in a swift motion. The blade flashed, cutting across the man's armored joints. The slaver cried out and stumbled back. The second raised his weapon, but Daniel grabbed the rifle from behind the door in one quick movement. A sharp crack echoed as he fired, the shot slamming into the ground near the slaver's feet, forcing him back. "Get off my land," Daniel growled, his voice like thunder. The third slaver hissed, stepping forward. But Daniel's aim shifted toward him with deadly precision. His stance was steady, his eyes burning with a warning that needed no words. For a moment, the three hesitated. Slavers were cruel, but not foolish. A trained soldier standing firm on his own ground was no easy prey. The leader spat to the side. "This isn't over, human. She belongs to us. We'll come back, and next time, we won't knock." They retreated slowly, dragging their wounded comrade with them. Daniel kept his aim steady until they disappeared down the road, their dark figures fading into the distance. Only then did he lower the rifle, his chest heaving with the weight of the moment. He shut the door firmly, locking it, his eyes scanning every corner before turning back to Lyra. She crawled out from under the table, her entire body shaking. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her eyes shone with something else: disbelief. You faced them. For me, Daniel set the rifle against the wall and crouched to her level. His voice was steady, but his gaze was sharp. "I told you, as long as you're here, they don't touch you. But this changes everything. They know now. They will come back stronger." Lyra nodded, wiping her tears, her voice trembling. "Then I will go. I cannot put you in danger." Daniel's jaw tightened. He grabbed her arm gently, firm but not cruel. "No. If you leave, they'll catch you in minutes. You stay, and we fight smart. Do you understand?" Her eyes widened, hope mixing with fear. "You would fight for me." Daniel looked away, his voice rough. "I fought for less." The silent agreement between them grew heavier, no longer just about hiding, but about survival. And both of them knew the next time the slavers came, it would not end with words. The door was locked, the windows barred, yet Daniel felt no safety inside his own home. The slavers' words still rang in his ears. This isn't over. Human, he knew they meant it. They would return, and next time they would bring more men. More weapons, more fury. Daniel sat near the fire, cleaning his rifle with slow, deliberate movements. His mind raced with strategies: how to defend, how to escape, how to keep the girl alive. Across the room, Lyra sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the flickering flames. She looked fragile, but Daniel knew she carried a storm inside her. At last, she broke the silence. "You should not have fought them. They will kill you for this." Daniel glanced up, his expression sharp. "They were going to break down my door. Do you think letting them in would have saved me? Or you?" Lyra lowered her gaze, shame coloring her face. "No, but now your blood will be spilled for my sake. That is not fair." Daniel set the rifle down and leaned forward, his voice firm. "But steady? Fair. Nothing about this galaxy is fair. I've buried soldiers who died protecting people they didn't even know. If I fall protecting someone who deserves a second chance, then it's worth it." Her eyes lifted slowly, surprise glimmering in them. "You mean that?" Daniel nodded once. "I don't waste words." Lyra's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, tears welled in her eyes again. She pressed a hand to her chest, whispering, "No one has ever chosen to protect me before." No one. Daniel felt something shift inside him at those words. He had saved comrades, shielded civilians, even carried dying men from battlefields. But this felt different. This was not about orders, not about duty. This was his choice. "Get some rest," he said gruffly, looking away. "Tomorrow, we prepare. If they come back, we make sure they regret it." Lyra hesitated, then wrapped the blanket tighter around herself and lay down near the fire. Her breathing was uneven at first, restless with fear, but eventually it softened. Daniel watched her for a moment, his thoughts heavy. He had sworn never to get involved again, never to carry someone else's burden after the war. But here he was, ready to fight for an alien girl he had known less than a day. He told himself it was survival, that if she fell into their hands, his own safety would crumble too. But deep down, he knew it was more. The hours crawled by until the night grew quiet again. Daniel did not sleep. He kept watch, every sound outside, sharpening his senses. The memory of armored boots on his porch still burned in his mind. At dawn, Lyra stirred. She rose slowly, her body stiff from exhaustion, but her eyes were steadier than before. She walked to Daniel's side, clutching the blanket like a shield. "Teach me," she said softly. Daniel frowned. "Teach you what?" "To fight," she whispered, her voice trembling yet determined. "I do not want to hide under tables when they come. I want to stand, even if it is only for a moment. I want to feel like I'm not a slave anymore." Her request stunned him. For a long time, Daniel stared at her, searching her face. He saw the scars, the fear, but also the spark. The same spark he had seen in recruits who refused to bow even. "When beaten down, you're weak," he said bluntly. "You can barely stand without shaking. If you try to fight now, they'll cut you down in seconds." Lyra lowered her eyes, but did not back away. "Then make me stronger. If I die, I die, as something more than what they made me. That is all I ask." Daniel's chest tightened. He knew that determination. It was the same fire that had driven him to survive countless battles. With a heavy sigh, he stood and handed her a wooden stick from the corner, something she could see. "Hold like a weapon." "Fine," he said. "But if you train with me, you follow my word exactly. No arguing, no shortcuts. Do you understand?" Lyra nodded quickly, gripping the stick with both hands. They stepped outside, the morning air cold against their skin. Daniel showed her basic stances, how to balance, how to grip. At first, her movements were clumsy, her strikes weak, but she did not stop. Every time she fell, she stood again. Every time he corrected her, she tried harder. Hours passed, sweat dripping down her forehead, her arms trembling with exhaustion. Daniel watched her closely, hiding the faint spark of pride that grew inside him. She was still fragile, but her spirit refused to break. When at last she collapsed onto the ground, breathing heavily, Daniel knelt beside her. "Not bad," he admitted. "You've got more fight in you than most recruits I've trained." Lyra smiled faintly through her exhaustion. "Because I have something to fight for now." Daniel looked at her, his own words caught in his throat. For a moment, he felt the dangerous bond between them grow stronger, unspoken yet undeniable. Before he could answer, the sound of distant engines rumbled through the morning air. Daniel's head snapped toward the horizon, his soldier's senses instantly alert. Dark shapes moved along the road, more slavers, more weapons, more danger. He clenched his fists, his jaw hard. The fight he had promised her was closer than either of them expected, and this time there would be no warnings. Engines roared in the distance, growing louder with every passing second. Daniel and Lyra stood outside the house, the morning sun casting long shadows behind them. The road filled with dust as armored vehicles rolled closer. Dozens of slavers marched in formation, weapons glinting. This was no search party. This was a hunt. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle. His eyes scanned the numbers, the positions, every detail his soldier mind could take in. He knew the odds were impossible, yet his stance was steady. Beside him, Lyra clutched the wooden stick he had given her earlier. Her body trembled, but her eyes carried the fire of someone who had chosen not to run. "Stay behind me," Daniel ordered, his voice firm. Lyra shook her head. "No. If I hide now, I will never escape the chains in my mind. I will fight, even if my strength is small." Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but there was no time. The slavers spread out, surrounding the house like wolves closing on prey. Their leader stepped forward, armor heavier than the rest, his mask shining with cruelty. Human. The leader barked, his voice echoing across the field. "Hand over the girl. She belongs to us. Do this, and we may spare your life." Daniel stepped forward, rifle raised, his eyes burning with defiance. "She doesn't belong to anyone. Not anymore." The slavers laughed, a cruel chorus that chilled the air. The leader raised his hand, signaling the attack. The first wave charged, weapons flashing. Daniel's rifle thundered, precise and deadly, each shot striking with soldier's perfection. 2 slavers fell, then 3, their bodies crashing into the dirt. But more surged forward. Lyra stood frozen for a moment, her heart hammering. Then she remembered Daniel's voice from training. "Stand firm, grip strong, never close your eyes." She raised the stick, swinging clumsily but with all her will, striking one slaver across the head as he reached for her. He stumbled, giving Daniel the opening to finish him. "Good," Daniel growled, covering her with rapid fire. "Keep moving, don't stop." The battle raged. Dust filled the air, gunfire cracked, metal clashed. Daniel fought like a man possessed, every motion sharp, every strike fueled by a fire he thought he had lost after the war. Lyra, though weak and untrained, refused to back down. She swung, kicked, clawed, anything to prove she was no longer a slave. But the numbers were overwhelming. Daniel felt the weight pressing in, the circle tightening. His ammo was running low. Sweat dripped down his face as he scanned the field, calculating, searching for a way out. Then he heard it, the shrill sound of sirens in the distance. Local patrols. The gunfire had drawn attention. The slavers hesitated, knowing capture by human lawmen could cost them dearly. The leader cursed, shouting orders, "Fall back." One by one, the slavers pulled away, dragging their fallen and retreating into the dust. Their leader pointed at Daniel as he withdrew, his voice carrying a final promise. "This is not the end, human. She will be ours again." Daniel lowered his rifle only when the last engine faded into the horizon. His chest heaved, his body aching, but he remained standing. The battlefield around his house was littered with broken armor and blood-stained dirt. Lyra dropped the stick, collapsing to her knees, tears streaming down her face. But these tears were not only fear, they were release, they were freedom. She looked at Daniel with wide, trembling eyes. "You stood against them. You faced death for me. Why?" She whispered. Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady but softer than before. "Because no one deserves chains. Not human, not alien. And because I made a choice the moment you stepped into my house. If I let them take you back, I would be no better than they are." Lyra's lips trembled as she reached out, gripping his hand tightly. "Then you are not only my protector, you are my beginning, my chance to live again." Daniel did not pull away. He felt the warmth of her hand, fragile yet strong, and something inside him shifted. He had carried the weight of war, the guilt of choices he could never change. But in this moment, standing beside the alien girl he had saved, he felt something he thought he had lost forever. Purpose. The patrols arrived minutes later, questioning, investigating, dragging away the fallen. Daniel gave little explanation, only enough to satisfy their curiosity. Lyra stayed hidden inside until they left, her fear of strangers too heavy to risk. When the dust finally settled, Daniel and Lyra sat together near the fire once more. The house bore scars from the battle, but it still stood. So did they. Lyra spoke softly, her voice filled with a fragile hope. You could send me away now. The danger would leave with me. But if you let me stay, I will not be a burden. I will cook, I will clean, I will learn. I will fight if I must. I only ask for one thing. Don't let me return to nothing. Daniel stared into the flames for a long time before answering. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of truth. You're not going back to nothing. You're staying here. From now on, this is your home too. Her eyes widened, tears spilling again, but this time they were tears of joy. She leaned closer, whispering, then today. Today is the first day I am free. Daniel nodded, his chest heavy but steady. Free, he repeated, as if sealing the word into the walls around them. And so, in that small wooden house, scarred by fire and battle, an unlikely pair began something new. A human soldier who had sworn never to protect again, and an alien girl who had once been chained, now shared not only survival, but a fragile bond strong enough to face the storms ahead. It was not the end of their struggle, but it was the beginning of something greater, a new life built not on chains, but on trust.